Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining in and watching this. If you don't know, my name is Lex Goodwin and I am a health advocate. I am living with a rare autoimmune disease called myasthenia gravis, and I have created platforms where I advocate for MG and chronic illnesses and really just encourage other people to live their best life and their fullest life, despite their illnesses and their conditions. I recently just met Dr. Tamara, and she is doing something amazing. She is hosting a masterclass for those living with autoimmune illnesses, and she is also living with MG herself. And I just thought it was really important for me to spotlight that and highlight that, and to hopefully get more people to register and join it. And it's just an important topic and conversation. So I'll allow her to introduce herself and take it from there.
Hi, everybody. It's lovely to meet you. Well, I'm Dr. Tamara Western. I was a medical doctor. I trained in the Czech Republic, and then I went back to my country, which is Trinidad and Tobago, and I worked there for a few years in oncology and hematology. And actually, I started getting really overwhelmed and fatigued by everything. And I thought it was just the job, the stress of it. I didn't realize that anything was actually wrong with me. But I felt so overwhelmed, I left the job. And a little while after that, I got diagnosed with myasthenia gravis. And then a lot of things clicked and a lot of things made sense. That was already like 7 years ago. So it's been a long journey since then. And I've managed to turn my life around. I think we'll talk more about that later on. But using the principles of functional medicine. So now I'm actually a functional medicine practitioner, and I actually help other women with autoimmune diseases to empower themselves and reclaim their health.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I thought that was really important because I feel like when you're diagnosed with an autoimmune illness or a condition, you kind of feel like you're losing yourself. You're losing your power. You don't really know. It's a big adjustment, so you don't know where to start. So I think something I really want to talk about with you is the initial stages, just having those initial symptoms and getting that initial diagnosis and what that does to you and how that impacts your life.
Yeah, no. So, like I said before, I just had no clue that anything was wrong with me. But that being said, I had left eyelid ptosis for a long time, but I just kept ignoring it. I just kept thinking, oh, I'm tired. It happens when I'm tired, because I was never thinking that I have an autoimmune illness. I was never thinking something's wrong with me. No, I was a young woman in my prime working at the hospital. Like, what could be wrong? I'm just tired. But I had been that tired since I was at university, since between 18 to 24 years old. That's when I was at university. And on my holidays, I used to spend every free moment nearly sleeping, even when I was with my friends. So we'd go to a party, and if it were in the night, like by 10, 11 o'clock, you'd find me asleep in somebody else's bed, just totally exhausted and unable to not do it. Do you know what I mean? So it was kind of like a joke. And I always used to think, they don't know how hard it is to study medicine, and they don't know my schedule and what it's like. But apparently I didn't know what it was like to be well.
You know what? I think we have similarities in our story there because initially I never could take naps. Like I always had so much energy. I was in college at the time as well. And I was always on the go, always on go mode. Then I just started to decline. I don't know. I just became tired all the time, just taking more naps and being exhausted in classes, struggling to stay awake. And I think for a lot of people with MG, that affects them as well. They have that symptom as well, just being super fatigued all the time. And I know for me, I went 6 to 8 months initially dealing with all these MG symptoms and not having a clue what was going on. And I remember thinking to myself, asking myself, am I crazy? No one else was around me was really taking it as seriously as I was. I thought something was really wrong with me. And for me to finally get the diagnosis, to have a label on it, it was like a big sense of relief and like a weight off my shoulders. Now, did you feel that as well when you got your diagnosis?
Not exactly, because I still didn't think that anything was wrong with me. So what happened was that I had stopped working. I was doing nothing now because I was, just so overwhelmed. And I was thinking, okay, I'm going to specialize and move on from this because, when you're a junior doctor, it's tough. And so I thought that was going to be the answer. So, but then when I wasn't working, I was just as tired, just as overwhelmed. And I was like, what's wrong with me? But even though I was having those thoughts, I still hadn't been prompted to have a diagnosis. It was like a totally incidental visit to the optometrist that eventually led to the investigation of the ptosis and then the discovery of the myasthenia gravis. So I was not one who was looking for it, but I couldn't, when I look back, see that I had had that for a long time, like maybe 10 years before I had my actual diagnosis.
Okay. You know what's so funny is my doctors told me after hearing my full story that I have been having and struggling with MG since I was a little kid. And then to be diagnosed at 19 years old, it just was like, okay, my entire life kind of made sense for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, hearing it in the end and really exploring what that meant made me reflect on how things had been. And this is how I know I can pinpoint that time when, oh yeah, things started to really go downhill from here. I was so tired. And I don't even know how I managed to live my life through all of that when I think about it now. But yeah, but it was life changing. But in saying that, I had already started making changes like, okay, so when I was working, I'd come home in the afternoon and I'd take my phone off and I wouldn't be able to talk to anybody after like 2 p.m. I just couldn't. I couldn't talk to any new person. It would take too much energy from me. So those were things that I had adapted already. I was lying down from that time because I couldn't sit down. I was too weak. My back, my neck, I needed to like just be like this.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things, or like I was already declining so many events with my friends, because I just couldn't muster up the energy. I started having to go everywhere with my then boyfriend, because I just like a fear kind of, when I got the diagnosis, a fear really set in, which we could talk about. But even before that, it's like I didn't want to be alone. I needed someone around me to like take care of me or something. That's just how I was feeling. And that actually was like a point of resentment for some of my friends and my family. Like, why do you have to go everywhere with this person? Like, what's wrong with you? Can't you be a normal person? And I was just like, but I am normal, but I didn't know that, I had this diagnosis. So this goes to show that you already make these changes without knowing that you have compensated for the way that you are being forced to live your life now.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about that. I wanted to talk about like the adjustment stage, because it starts when you're initially beginning to experience these symptoms. You have to make those adjustments and kind of adapt to your body and what's going on. I know for me, when I was in school, there were times when I had double vision so bad I couldn't see. So I kind of had to adapt to that. Like I think people underestimate people who aren't living with chronic illnesses, underestimate just how much you have to change your life.
Absolutely.
So speaking on that, what advice or what tips do you have for people who are either newly diagnosed or really struggling with their health and their conditions right now with the adjustment stage?
I mean, it's such a process, isn't it? And some of the emotions that we're all going through are first being really angry and feeling betrayed by your own body. That's definitely how I felt. I was like, oh, you've let me down. I had such great plans for us. What are you doing? And then really trying to come to terms with what does your life look like now? And then when you realize that you've changed, almost sometimes irrevocably, that you have to mourn the you that was as well.
That's a
And
great point.
the fact that version of you who was oblivious, who didn't know that you had this illness, who was trying to live their best life, just doesn't exist anymore. And that was really hard. And then, you tend, like people with MG or chronic illnesses, some of them, they really want to find support in that community. And for me, I felt like, oh, I don't want to be surrounded by all those sick people. I mean, I did have a little look and I was like, oh no, this is so scary. Like, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to see those images. And I guess that's not being prepared. That's also, when I say prepared, I mean you're not ready for
Yeah.
that yet, and so that was another stage of that I had to go through. And acceptance, it took a long time,
Me too.
a long time. I can't say how long that's going to take for anybody, but while I was waiting for that acceptance,
Mhm.
I didn't get to live the best life that I could have been living, because it was almost like being in limbo. Like, okay, should I really try this hard to leave the country if I'm going to choke on my saliva tonight? Do I make an effort?
You know what I
Should,
call it? Whenever I'm describing it to people, I say that, there are years of my life where I was in survival mode because I
oh,
just had to figure out
yes.
how to survive and manage and make do with what I was given. And a lot of things were taken away, and I was robbed of a lot of experiences that I expected to have. And this life, like you were saying, that you had to imagine for yourself, that is really taken away from you. And I don't think people understand the impact of that and how devastating that can be.
Yeah, you're really dealing with a lot at that point. You're mourning the old you. You don't know how to cope and how to manage this new illness. You're being faced with words like no cure, forever, take these medications. And when that stops working, take these other medications. It's very scary. And you're so young, not just you, but so was I. And
Yeah.
so, what is your future life going to look like? What if you wanted to have a family? What's that going to look like?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was not a good time. And I think that really forced me into some kind of hiding, because I wasn't me anymore. I was this thing. I was the product of the diagnosis and what was happening to me. And I don't know, parts of me wanted to fight back, but I just maybe had given up at that point. I didn't know how. I couldn't find people that I could really talk to about it, because like I said, I really rejected the idea of all the other sick people. No
Mm-hmm.
offense. And but then really trying to, nobody else who didn't have an autoimmune disease could really understand what you're really going through, because a lot of the reactions were, oh, you're faking it, why don't you just snap out of this, like it's all in your head, you gave up your perfect job, what's wrong with you, like, and I was just like, it's really insulting even to your experience, your intelligence, the relationship you have with these people, that they can't see that you're not just going to sit there and lie to them that these things are bothering you, and there they are telling you it's in your head and all these other things that are just making you feel worse about what you really have to go through. So it can be hard. And then I would even go as far to say that they were trying to be supportive, they were and that's what was coming out of their mouths.
Yeah. You know what? I think it's so funny that you're saying this because my story has been very similar. But I think being able to look back and reflect on that, I see the big change in me. Now I look, when people make comments like that, I give them a lot of grace. I give myself, when I'm having bad days, a lot of grace. Like I try to be understanding because people don't know. People see
Yeah,
us, we look so great and, healthy.
normal.
Yeah. And if you don't know what's behind closed doors, how can you even fathom or come up with the perfect thing to say? I just want people to know that there's no right or wrong with chronic illness. However you cope or deal with it, that's just the process that you kind of have to go through. We have to go through our own process to get through it, to
I
get to the other side.
definitely agree with that.
Now, let me ask you, I know we talked a lot about how it made you feel. How did this impact your self-image, your self-esteem? Was that a big challenge for you?
Yes, yes. So initially there was the ptosis, but then, I think as the years went on, I felt like there was an asymmetry that came across my face, which
Me too.
I still hate to
Me
this
too.
day. So
So do
it's a
I.
sore point, I have to say. But when that shallow part of me goes back into the cupboard, I realize that I have this battle scar that is visible because I have survived this. I am surviving this and I am fighting. I'm not dead somewhere. I'm not in a hole again somewhere. And I have this and I look this way because I'm winning.
Hmm.
And so that's my new perspective and the one I'm holding on to.
Wow, you know what? Honestly, when you said that, I literally got chills. That was so powerful. Like I never looked at it that way. I just always, I'm still kind of trying to, make sense of it and be okay with it and accept it. But sometimes it really makes me feel bad about myself that I this is happening and I'm not in control of it. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. And actually, I mean, many people listening will probably already know that, oh, the people who get these kinds of illnesses tend to have A-type personalities. They like to be in control. So obviously I tick all those boxes.
Me too.
And when you have this now, you're forced to give up this control, which is so hard for you to do as well, and to accept the things that have happened. But even being here in this moment and trying to do what we are doing and the masterclass and all the other work that you or I do is inspirational. It is there for somebody who needs to hear it, who is going to find something they can hold on to and get through their day with. And so it's really important. And I think a little ptosis or whatever else asymmetry is not going to stop us from getting our messages out there and really giving people hope and helping them to realize how they can be better, how they can live a better quality of life.
I agree 100%. Now, you mentioned your masterclass. Let's talk more about that. So tell me a little bit more about your masterclass and why you decided to do it.
So the masterclass, well, it was kind of a challenge for myself. I mean, I just said I'm an A-type personality, so I've never done a masterclass before, but I'm really looking forward to it because, I mean, I have in the past loved things like teaching and things like that, and masterclass is like a perfect opportunity for, helping people and helping women. Or, I mean, I have a few men signed up as well, so I'm really looking forward to
Oh,
everybody
great.
being there and helping all of them really learn things that they may not be aware of that is contributing to their autoimmune illness and how they can tackle it. So by the end of the masterclass, you should be leaving with some tips that you can do and obviously a deeper knowledge as to why you have this and really what you can do to change it.
Now, the masterclass, there will be a link. I'll make sure I link below. Can you just give the specific details? So when is it, what time? And I'll make sure that I link below how people can register.
Of course, it's going to be on Saturday, 2nd April 2022 at 2 p.m. BST, which is British Standard Time. So you could just Google that and find out what that is in your time zone. And you get tickets from the link. There, it's free. Let's point that out. It's free, completely free to attend. But I'm just asking you to register in advance, and you will get the Zoom broadcast link when you have your ticket in hand, and you can attend that way.
Sounds great. I'm really excited for it. And I'm excited that you're excited, and I'm excited that it's a thing because more people need to know how to live your life despite this illness and despite this condition. Now, before we go, what is your best advice for someone living with the autoimmune condition? What do you want them to know from you personally?
Well, one message that I've been really putting out there is that there is hope, because when I was caught in that space of not knowing what my future was going to look like and would I get worse, I was sitting waiting for things to happen to me. And, I didn't feel that there was much hope. But if I could think about how my mindset is now, I definitely believe that there's hope. I definitely believe that your body can heal itself. And there's so many more options for us with autoimmune illnesses now, that we can achieve the best health that we can for ourselves. And I want to let people know that you can have hope. Don't be afraid to have hope, and don't be afraid to ask questions and to find answers that may not be forthcoming from the people who you have surrounded yourself with, or even your healthcare professionals who may be limited in their understanding as to what other options are out there.
Thank you so much. Well said. I think that's a good message. And I think people will be able to take away a lot of things, not only from this, but also your masterclass as well. So I'm just really excited. And thank you again for allowing me to speak with you and have this discussion.
Thank you as well for the opportunity. And it's been a pleasure to meet you in person.
Oh, you too.